broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I am a Finance Development Specialist on the Economic Development Department team. And this webinar that we're going to do today, called Making Business Improvement Districts Work, this is a part of our New Mexico Economic Development Department's Finance Development webinar series. So we host these webinars every month, and we address financing topics and topics related to economic development. So we're really excited today about the topic at hand, talking about business improvement districts, otherwise known as BIDS. And we're joined today by an expert in this field, Francis B., who is the Executive Director of the Gallup Business Improvement District. So he's going to be walking us through what is a BID and the ins and outs of what he's gone through with the Gallup BID, and hopefully you can take the information back to your communities and see if a BID would work for you. So before we get started, I did want to let everyone know that we are recording this session. We'll put this up on our New Mexico Economic Development YouTube page, and we will send out the presentation. Actually, now that I said that, I think it is rather large, so we'll figure out a way to get the information out to you. And all of our contact my contact and the department's contact will be listed in the in whatever document we send in that follow-up email. If you have questions, please feel free to answer them as we're going along, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. There's a gray box on the right side of your screen. Type in those questions, and we'll get those answered. So I did want to go over a little bit about the finance development team, so you know who we are. Before we get started, we can provide a variety of services. We have a number of programs that are available. Feel free to reach out to us. We are here to connect projects and communities to funding, as well as vice versa. We're here to connect the funders to the projects in the communities. We have a lot of connections, and much of what we do is matchmaking. So if you have a business, if you have a project, if you have questions about BIDS or other finance development tools, reach out to us, and we can begin to start that process to explore it more, walk you through, connect you with the resources that you need. So really quickly, our programs that we manage are the Local Economic Development Act. This is a closing fund, Fund It, New Markets Tax Credits, New Mexico Credit Enhancement Program, the Rural Efficient Business Program, and Opportunity Zone. So these are the finance programs that we are managing within our department. And wanted to make sure you know about Fund It. This is a really great platform for communities that have financing questions, have financing challenges in regard to their economic development or infrastructure projects. So when a community is faced with, here's this great project, but I don't know how to fund it, where do I come up with the money? This is an opportunity that you can present your project to one location at one table. We have gathered there all the funders that are on a state level and a federal level, and they're able to give you feedback and share experience, share knowledge about where to go for different funding sources. So really fantastic tool. We're thrilled to be working with all our different agency partners. And something really exciting to add is that Fund It for the last couple of years has only been for local governments or nonprofits. And we will be expanding Fund It this summer to include businesses. So we'll be able to get into the commercial project realm. So first event will be in Taos, and some exciting stuff coming up this summer. So stay tuned. And one of Fund It's goals, obviously, is to provide education to communities about financing tools. Obviously, BIDS, TIFs, special assessment districts, bonds, those are all development financing tools that we are interested in and helping, we want to help provide information and education about those tools to communities. So you can go to our New Mexico resource map that is on our website, and there you can break down by category your financing that's available to you. So if you have housing needs, or if you have business resource needs, you can see what grants are available and what loans are available, what tools are available. So we hope that that is helpful. We'll be updating that this summer as well. You can apply for Fund It on our webpage. And obviously, as I mentioned, you can check out all the other finance topics on our YouTube channel, all the other webinars that we've done. So without more delay, I'm going to turn it over to Francis, and he is going to begin the webinar. So feel free to ask questions as we go on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis B. I'm the Executive Director of the Business Improvement District in Gallup. Johanna had asked me to share my journey with the BID with all of you. And that journey has been more of a meandering journey than a straight line march. And this presentation will reflect that. There are certain elements of the work that I want you to understand and take away from this meeting. It's not a straightforward how-to manual. Rather, it's a description of challenges that you'll face and organizing principles that you must follow, and followed by a number of examples of what we've been able to do in Gallup and how it has helped the community at large, not just the business district. One of my organizing principles is this slogan, or this saying that Captain Sully Sullenberger gave during an interview after he had landed the disabled plane in the Hudson River. If we focus on doing the work and we don't worry about who will get the credit for the accomplishment, we can really accomplish a great deal. I have found that it's part of the human condition that people want credit for everything. They need that gratification. But if that becomes the primary motivation of getting involved in doing this kind of development work, it gets in the way. There are, in most towns, there are several organizations working at the same time to improve the community and the business conditions and social conditions. They all have to help each other. This is long. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you read this. This is the standard definition of what a business improvement district is. The services provided by a BID are supplemental to the normal services provided by a city. And at the bottom sums everything up. It's self-help through self-assessment and business-led management. It's a public-private partnership in which the property owners and business owners have to vote. They have to elect to make a collective financial contribution to the maintenance, development, and promotion of their district. They have to vote to accept upon themselves a small tax, which is called a special assessment fee. The monies from that create the general fund that the BID organization uses to accomplish its projects. BID has every approach to economic development has its advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of having a BID are the following. Most importantly, you have a steady, reliable funding source for those supplemental services. Because the property owners have voted to accept the special assessment fee and City Council adopts that as a policy, everyone must pay. So you have a very reliable general fund, and that allows you to respond to the changing needs of the business community fairly quickly. If all goes well, property values will increase, sales volumes will increase, and commercial vacancy rates will decline. You'll have a cleaner and safer and more attractive business district. This is what improves sales. Most districts are formed because the district itself has suffered a decline in its volume of commerce as other retail centers have grown up around them. It creates a unified voice. You see here it says increase the business district's influence. It gives a unified voice to the property and business owners to discuss or negotiate in a non-binding way issues that are important to them with the city council and the county commission. Okay, I just described that the funds that are used to pay for the programs come from the special assessment fee. The municipality has to do the billing and collecting of those funds. A nonprofit is not legally empowered to send out a tax bill and collect the revenue. By paying a modest fee per owner, the property owners create a large fund that enables them to receive services that would cost them a lot more if they as individuals purchase them. Now, the modest fee it depends on the size of your footprint of your property. In our downtown, we have 2 car dealerships. One pays $10,000 a year in the assessment fee, and another pays $9,500. Those 2 plus 2 other property owners pay about 45% of the grand total of all of the fee. Most of the fees are about $400 a year. Okay. The question often comes up, why do we have to go through the formal process of creating a bid when we could very easily set up a merchants association without a lot of paperwork and without involving the city council? The reasons are very simple and straightforward. The bid provides a steady and reliable source of funding. The merchants association does not. It depends on voluntary contributions to establish the funds. And the legislation, which is the state legislation that your local ordinance would be modeled upon, states that all property owners must pay. So there are no free riders. Everyone must pay. Because everyone must pay, everyone pays attention to what's going on. It's normal in almost any kind of activity we can think of that 20% of the people involved do all of the work and put in all the contributions, and 80% of the people don't do that. They're the free riders. In the situation with the bid, you don't have free riders. There are people who put in the majority of the work and others who either are not capable or don't have time, but they do participate. They are not AWOL. Okay, now the hardest part of running a bid is getting it started in the beginning. It's a political process. It's like local political organizing at the street level. Some concerned property owners will get together, have a coffee meeting, and eventually form a steering committee, which is a formal committee, and then they hold the first initial meeting of that committee. As an outcome of that, you want to have a database of potential property owners and commercial tenants within the district. It's during this time that you begin to think about the contours of your district. Because once that's voted as an ordinance by city council, you cannot change the contours. It's very important that determining the boundaries of the district is extremely important part of this process, and it takes time. Also, the steering committee will look at the needed improvements, the first year operating budget, which they're taking a best guess at that. But from that, they back out a formula to create the assessment fee invoices. And you have to have an idea of what your general fund level should be in order to operate the way you want to. And then you divide that by the property formula that you come up with. Then you have to do a mock trial billing run for each property owner to make sure that your billing system is accurate. Mailing out the bills to the wrong addresses, the wrong names, or with the wrong assessment fee amount results in ill will. We've had mistakes, but generally speaking, the initial invoicing system was set up correctly. After the steering committee has a handle on what they think can be done, what they want to do, and how to fund it through the fees, they do mailing to all the stakeholders in the district, and that includes the business owners, property owners, some of whom may be living in another state, but they own property in your town, as well as residents and other stakeholders, other organizations that are operating in the area, and the city and city council and city staff and the county. Then they have a second meeting. The first meeting is informational. Second meeting, which follows upon normally quite a few face-to-face meetings with the stakeholders who either attended the first meeting or found out about it and have developed an interest in helping form the bid. At the second meeting, issues are discussed, potential solutions are discussed, the reasons for having a bid, and then people sign and show their support for the bid. This is where you find out if you're going to be able to accomplish it. You have to obtain 51% support among the property owners. If you have 50%, the effort has failed and council cannot approve an ordinance. While you're doing this process, you have to also keep in mind that there will be some beautiful, imposing, large buildings within whatever area you're forming the district that may be owned by municipalities, religious organizations, or nonprofits. And according to the state statute, those organizations do not pay the assessment fee. So when you're trying to determine the total amount of money that will be in your general fund, you have to keep in mind that these buildings, no matter how large they are, they're not going to be contributing. Okay, then you document the results of the voting, and that shows the support for the bid. The next step is you go to City Council, explain the support, level of support, and ask them to consider passing the ordinance to authorize the creation of the bid. The local ordinance has to follow, at least in general terms, the language in the state statute. The Gallup bid ordinance, about 95% of the language in there is taken straight from the state ordinance. The ordinance is well written, and I mean the state statute is well written, so it's just as easy to follow it as not. And if you do follow it, you'll be in compliance with what the state wants to see. This makes it a lot easier to work with the state, and also if you seek funds from any department in the state through grants or anything else, but you can demonstrate that you're in compliance. So then the city council, together with the bid, determine whether or not to go ahead and form the bid. Okay. Now, when city council creates the ordinance includes the details of how that special assessment fee is going to be created, the math that's involved, and how it will be billed, invoiced, how they will collect the money, how they will distribute those fees from the city's accounts over to the bid accounts. And it will also specify the mechanism for the city to provide a match if they choose to do so. Most places that have bids, the city does provide some sort of match. In Gallup, we are very fortunate. The city provides a 100% match. So even though Gallup's a small town of 20,000 people and the bid district only has 175 properties in it, when you take the amount of fees that are coming in from the property owners and then double that by adding the city match, it provides us with a general fund large enough to accomplish some meaningful work. The bid is a 501c3 nonprofit. Other corporate structures are often commonly used. So you could be a 501c6. Then what structure you want to use will be determined by the steering committee, any financial advisors that you bring in. You probably want to have a CPA on your steering committee. You'll need that kind of advice, and also an attorney. Every bid is going to be different. Even bids within the same city could be different structures. Okay, now the next step is the bid has to establish a vision for what it wants the district to become, what it thinks it can grow to become. Many bids are located in city downtown commercial districts because those districts suffered when commerce moved out to shopping malls that were built that were newer and shinier, or the mall operators incentivized the merchants to move out to the mall, and also the coming of Walmart. But you can have a bid in other districts of the city. In Santa Fe, where I'm sitting with Johanna here, I've been approached by 5 different neighborhoods that would like to have some kind of a mechanism like a bid. They don't know much about it, but they know they need something. So that's 5 just in this one city. I think Milwaukee has 50, and New York has about the same amount. So it doesn't have to be limited to a downtown commercial district. There's a major non-ROI benefit to having a bid, and because we talk about the growth of commerce and the increase in property values, et cetera, but it provides a very important mechanism for communication between the property owners, the business owners, and the local, regional, and state government staff and elected officials. It provides a formal mechanism to call a meeting or to advocate for a position, or to do to correspond in writing. When you're creating the strategic plan for the bid, you really should keep in mind and study carefully plans that have already been created by your municipality, and those plans will have been voted on and adopted by City Council as a policy of the city. You don't want, it's not helpful to create a plan that runs counter to what they've already decided to do. It's confusing. Everybody gets in everybody else's way, and if you go to seek funding, and the question is asked whether what you're doing is in alignment with the city's master plan or metropolitan redevelopment plan, it's much better to be able to say yes than no. The funder wants to know that the city will stand behind the work that you're doing. If not 100%, at least they're supporting the work that you're doing philosophically. There's another process that occurs every 3 to 5 years, the land updates and the land development standards. We just went through that process in Gallup, and some of the standards were changed in consideration of some of the work that we anticipate will be done over the next 5 to 10 years. But if we didn't participate in those meetings, the planners who were from the major architectural firms in the state would not have known. So you really want to participate in those meetings. Keep an eye out for when they are being held. They're usually orchestrated by your local planning and zoning commission. Timeline. Now, organizing a bid is a lot of work. You can't just sprinkle pixie dust on your town and have wonderful things happen. This political effort takes a long time. You need to be an optimistic person. Well, you need to form a group of optimistic persons who have a good sense of humor and don't take rejection personally. Because the information, canvassing all of the potential participants and providing them with the information will be new news to them. They have maybe never heard of a bid. They maybe never heard of economic development. So they may feel like you're intruding into their life. You're asking them to pay a tax they never heard of. It's a lengthy education process that and the outcome hopefully is that the people, at least 51% of them, will see the merits of the program outweighs the fact that the property owner is going to pay a modest fee. In the case in Gallup, it took a couple of years before they got to the 51%. And when they started the bid in 2009, they had exactly 51%. And approximately 51% of the property owners were paying the fee. But as time went on and everybody saw the work that was really being done, and they realized, well, yes, this is a real organization doing real work. It's really helping, so I should pay. A couple of months ago, a fellow came in my office who had never paid for 9 years. And he said he had been observing what we're doing, and he thought it was time to pay his fair share, and he paid 9 years worth of assessment fees. So it's not easy, but it's worth the effort. And it's not glamorous. You don't get good publicity. It's just work that you're doing for the good of your community and for no other reason. Okay.
And Francis, is there a limitation to when you get those signatures of support? Do you have to gather them within 1 year, or is there a limitation on the time? Do you know?
I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there is.
Okay, but it took you all, you said it.
Well, it took them maybe 6 months of noodling around, not really even knowing what they were doing. And then they were able to get enough people who were seriously interested to form the steering committee. The steering committee did not really know how to go about it. They approached the local council of governments. We have a strong Northwestern Mexico Council of Governments. The Council of Governments didn't know much about it, but they researched it because they network with other COGs all around the country. They had a POV that it was a very good idea. Then they obtained the funding to hire a consultant to develop the plan. Mm-hmm. While that consultant was developing the plan, the steering committee and other volunteers were canvassing the area and having meetings with property owners and explaining the benefits of the bid. And as they learned more from the consultant process, they were able to explain that better to the property owners. But once you have that vote, then you immediately want to go to city council. You don't want people to change their mind, and you don't want it to get stale.
Right.
Okay, now I'm going to show you some examples of what we've been doing. Every city does different work. Depends on what your challenges are, what your opportunities are. We have a very strong arts community in Gallup, and that is what we were able to focus on. My first, this isn't a tangent here. I lived and worked in New York for quite a while. And for part of that time, I worked in an office building that was at 42nd Street and 5th Avenue. That's sort of across 42nd Street from the main library, the big library you see in pictures and movies with the lions on the front. Behind that park was a park that was 1 square city block. That park had fallen into such disrepair in the 80s when the city was essentially bankrupt that it had become an open-air drug bazaar. And there was no way to control that. They tried a lot of different approaches. Eventually, they put up a 15-foot high cyclone fence with barbed wire on the top. And for 10 or 11 years, that park was closed. Eventually, and it was an awful sight right in the busiest midtown commercial area of New York and right behind that beautiful library. Eventually, a new administration came in that decided to do something about that. And they encouraged the formation of a BID in the Times Square area. And that BID renovated Bryant Park. And if you Google Bryant Park, New York City, you'll see what a marvelous change was put into effect by a BID. That was my first coming across BIDs as a concept, and I was astounded at what they were able to do. What you're looking at here is, go back to that. The Gallup at night was dark because we have these replicas of the old-time gas street lamps, which don't throw a lot of light. And it was dark and it was uninviting. People did not really want to go downtown at night. The movie theater was closed, and there was not a lot of reason to go downtown at night. Although there are good restaurants and coffee shops, etc., in the downtown area. So we paid for this lighting. We paid for the lights, and we paid the city electric department to install them. This completely changed the feeling in the downtown, and now people are happy to go downtown, and visitors from other cities see this, and it makes a nice first impression, and they realize that the city administration and the businesses in this area really care about their city. Wayfinding is an important process. Main Streets work on this, so do BIDS. We installed these kiosks in strategic locations downtown with maps showing all the businesses, as well as panels where we can put posters about events that are coming up. These are heavy duty, specially made out of aircraft aluminum and are solar panel powered so that at night they're lit. We wanted to put welcoming gateways to the district so folks would know when they are entering the downtown. In Silver City, where I had worked previously, there's a beautiful arch above Broadway. Welcome to Silver City. We really weren't able to do that. This street that you're looking at is actually Route 66, which is New Mexico 118. So we didn't really have a way to put a large arch like that, and we decided to put what you see here as the Welcome to Gallup monuments at the four entrances of Gallup. Go back again. These were made by local masons and welders, and this is a good example of having a general fund and being able to pay for this. We didn't have to spend several years of seeking for the funds. We were just able to do it. The same thing is true for the lights that you saw in the first image. Okay. This is a project that was started out as a simple beautification project, but turned into a larger and more impactful community building project. One of the board members had been advocating for a couple of years to improve the appearance of those large concrete trash receptacles that all of our cities have. Go to the next picture. You see these, they're usually a sort of beige color or tan color, the color they look when they come out of a cement factory. They're used so that the trash cans don't blow around the street during our windy season and other times, and they're not attractive. They're usually hit with a lot of graffiti. Okay, go back. No, go back. Back. So that we considered hiring a company to just paint them. And we could come up with a design, they could make stencils, and they could just quickly paint them all. And that would be efficient. It would be expensive to hire a commercial painting company to do that, because you're not just painting a wall. These things weigh 300 pounds and they're hard to move around, and you need a place to work on them. So it would have been an expensive process. The board member who was in favor of this said, well, we're a community of artists. Why don't we have our own artists paint them? Well, if we're going to have our own artists paint them, then we have to establish a program to facilitate that. And so we did. And we worked with the Gallup BID, the Gallup Main Street, the Gallup Arts and Cultural District, and the Gallup Art Council, which is called Gallup Arts, all worked together to put together a program. The fellow standing in the front is a very prominent muralist in Gallup named Rick Saraceno. He's painted several extremely large, beautiful murals in the town. And he conducted a sort of an introductory session for the artists. Everyone who's sitting there is a local artist, most of them very prominent artists. And he was explaining how this whole program would work. Go ahead. Each of these receptacles has 4 sides, of course, so you have 4 designs by each artist. So we had over 50 of these. That's over 200 images painted by very, very good artists. The community building aspect of this that I mentioned has to do with the artists themselves. Many of these artists live on the Navajo Nation, which is vast. And they can live hours apart from each other and have never met. Some of them had never been to the town, or they come to town once a year. So working together in the area that was provided to us by the city, there was an abandoned space that the city intends to turn into a cultural facility, but currently not used. And it's a wide open space that they allowed us to use that for the artists to paint the receptacles. So it gave them a chance to get to know each other, talk about their work, talk about Native American culture, talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And it also allowed them to spend time in the downtown and get to know, or if not know well, at least meet and talk with residents, visitors, and business owners in the downtown. So it was an excellent community building effort. We didn't expect that from it, but it was probably the best outcome. Then we had the public vote. The Gallup the Art Council coordinated this. The public voted for the best design and the best painterly execution, the best mark making. And that gave so that helped to provide a great sense of pride to the artists. It gave the community a sense of pride that everybody was contributing to this effort, and it really did improve the way the downtown looks. Some artists go back. Some of the designs were abstract, as you see on this planter. Go ahead. And many of the artists chose to paint themes that had to do with Navajo culture or Zuni. And when you look at all 4 sides, you see there's a narrative there. The artists took this very seriously. I mean, like any painting, this wasn't just a slapdash like painting your patio. This fellow here took weeks to paint that one planter. Okay, another aspect of the work that was determined to be important during the planning process was to sponsor events that would attract people to downtown, both local residents and visitors from outside the area. There were many one-off events, you might say, as well as many one-off events held inside the El Moro Theater, which is right in the heart of downtown. 2 of the events that have been ongoing, they're regular scheduled events with an actual line item in the bid budget, are the Downtown Monthly Art Crawl Festival and the annual Freedom Ride Flight Cruise Festival. Most of our towns have some sort of first Saturday, second Saturday, first Friday downtown event. Because we have a lot of musicians as well as a lot of artists, we call it a festival. And I'll show you some photos in a minute. But this has become successful over time. In the beginning, it was disorganized, but it was a good party. The current director of the Art Council organized it much more tightly. And now we have an average of over 1,100 participants every month. In the warm summer months, we have about 2,000. In the chilly shoulder months of March and November, we have about 800 or 900. The folks want to know, is there any ROI on this program? And so the Art Council did a survey, and it turned out the average visitor spends over $7. So when we multiply that by 1,100, that's a substantial amount of consumer expenditure. The Freedom Ride Flight Cruise is something that is held once a year at the end of July. the BID was having difficulty figuring out how to organize a signature event that would be really large enough to attract people from out of state. But they hit upon the idea of combining events, and any other city can easily do this. There were events spread out across the summer months that were each in its own was quite successful, but they each did their own advertising. They each had their own niche from which they were attracting visitors, and they decided that if they held them all, if they combined these three on the same weekend, then that would provide a rationale for advertising much more broadly, and visitors would know that they would have several days of good activities to see and participate in. So this is the activities that have been going on that were combined, the events, was a classic car show at the Gurley Ford dealership. That's been going on 13 years. The balloon mass ascensions, which are very popular in Albuquerque, are also very popular in the Gallup area. We have the Red Rock Balloon Association, and they have an enormous event in December. But they also have an event in the summer. So they have mass ascensions in the morning. The classic car show is Saturday in the morning following the mass ascensions. Then in the downtown Courthouse Plaza area, which is a city block, we have live performances of circus performers from Wise Fool group here in Santa Fe, live music, and Native American dancers up on the plaza, the courthouse entrance area in the evening. And then there's a veterans motorcycle rally that runs across the street that runs across the state that day, and then turns around from Arizona, comes back to Gallup for a spectacular event called the Tunnel of Fire. Well, the city hired a marketing firm to analyze that event, and they determined that we attract about 7,000 participants or visitors. 1/3 of them come from out of state. So they stay overnight in hotels, and they eat in the restaurants, and they do a little shopping, and they have a good time. And some of them even have come back to start businesses.
And those numbers, is that citywide or is that just
Yes.
urban? Okay.
Yes.
Those are great numbers.
What?
Those are great numbers.
Yes, they are. We knew it was successful, but we didn't know how successful. We have been encouraged to expand that event and make it a much larger event and try to attract 10 to 15,000 people. But we think at this time it will be hard to control that. It's a free event, and it's in a space of a couple of square blocks in downtown. So if you had 20,000 people in there, it would be like an overcrowded rock concert, and the potential for having problems would increase. The way it's been going the past 5 years, we've had very, very happy, wonderful, family-friendly events that everybody looks forward to, and we don't want to change that. It's free because we're not trying to make money or get into the concert promotion business. We're trying to do community building exercises. So to have everybody from the surrounding area come in, many people from the surrounding area come into town for this party and just be together in a harmonious way, that's our goal, and we're accomplishing that. This is a photo from one of the arts crawls. I think this was March. You can see it's a little chilly, but there's a little boy sitting there, and they have activities for children. On the left is the Art Council building, and then farther up and closer to the center is the El Moro movie theater. This is the walkway that is at a 90-degree angle to the street, and vendors and bands set up there, as well as activities for children. This I'm showing you for two reasons. One, we run this ad in Arizona, various cities in New Mexico, and in Colorado, and it shows the activities of that festival. The balloons, the car show, the circus performers, and the Tunnel of Fire. I'm also showing that you see at the bottom all of those logos. The BID logo, the Gallup Real True is the city. The Gallup McKinley Chamber of Commerce is to the right of the Gallup World True. And New Mexico Oil and Gas Association contributes. And then the Veterans Helping Veterans. So all of those groups are working together to make this big event happen. And that's being able to collaborate with everyone is another goal and success of this event. I also want to show this because we used to send out a newsletter to the property owners. There are 175 properties owned by approximately 97 individuals. So 175 newsletters went out and were read or not read. Maybe half of them were read. But that didn't inform the general public. This is the back page ad from our monthly Arts and Entertainment magazine. By running this instead of our little newsletter, we can inform the general public of the programs and events that we are sponsoring and managing. So it's a way of marketing ourselves. And then I can reuse the layout to advertise in other cities as needed. That's one of the Wise Fool performers. They have routines, they have performances that they do, but they also spend several hours interacting with the children. And that's, I think that's one of the reasons that we attract so many people to the event, is that it is a really family-friendly event. Okay, we represent, the BID represents private sector support and has provided a match. This is important, and a good example will come up in a minute where when I'm going to show you that the Council of Governments, together with the city and the Art Council, applied for a large grant from the federal agency, the National Endowment for the Arts, and they were successful. In order to have the money provided to them after it was approved, they had to demonstrate that they could come up with a 100% match to the federal government funds. So the BID was able to provide $25,000 from the private sector. The city provided funds, the county, and I think the chamber also. So the BID was able to just do that. We had the money, and we didn't have to go and find money ourselves in order to turn around and give it to the Art Council as a match. We work a lot with the city. Sometimes it's like a kumbaya. Sometimes it's more hectic. But they're putting in 100% match to the property owner's fees. With that kind of skin in the game, we welcome any opportunity to work with them, and it's much better to work with your city than against your city. They're involved with our board meetings and with our planning process. So we have, it's not a perfect world, but it's a pretty good working relationship. Without it, we would not be able to accomplish much at all. The president of the Business Improvement District was in 1986, was able to secure for Gallup one of the first main streets in New Mexico. And that main street did a lot of good work in Gallup, and he was the president of that board. Later in the 90s, something happened, and the city defunded some of the nonprofits in the town, and that main street closed down. Later, when the BID was formed, it was in operation for about 5 years, and this same individual was on the board of the BID, asked New Mexico Main Street if Gallup could take a shot at restarting its Main Street organization. So they had to start from scratch and go through all the training and organizing and everything else, but it was successful, as well as obtaining a cultural district, arts and cultural district designation. So under the guidance of this board president from the BID served as both the incubator and the fiscal agent, and is a continuing source of funding. During the past 4 years, the BID has put over $80,000 into this Main Street and Arts and Cultural District effort. They had it, they wanted, the property owners understand the importance of the Main Street program. And we collaborate with Gallup Arts on an ad hoc basis as they develop projects and grant-seeking efforts. This is an example where this is the one I was mentioning earlier, where the Art Council got the money from the National Endowment from the Arts to come up with a design for a placemaking effort in the downtown. And it just happened to be along Cole Avenue, which is that sort of brown stripe across the middle with the trees. That's our main shopping street. And the sidewalks have not been repaired most of them since 1938. So that whole area needs a lot of work. But getting the design through this federal grant has put us in a position of being what's called shovel ready. And once you're shovel ready, you can try to secure money for the construction. And we were successful in getting close to $700,000 in capital outlay money through the efforts of our local legislators. The BID is contributing something. The city has agreed to use $1.25 million from a grant that they may get from another source. So if you look at here, you'll see the City of Gallup, Gallup Council of Governments, Gallup Business Improvement District, Gallup Arts, the engineering companies, Gallup Main Street, all work together on this process. And this ad is what we use to inform the general public of what's going on. Here's another project. This design was created by the Design for Architectural Design Services, the consultant who handles architectural design services for New Mexico Main Street. That's the future, and this is the current view of that same alley. The city's calling a pilot project. If it goes well and everybody likes it, including mayor and council, then they'll just keep doing each block throughout the downtown. They're designed to be more human friendly so that people will not be afraid to walk around in the alleys. And at the same time, it's going to replace the water, sewer, electric, and telecommunications. We will partner with Comcast and with the city for community cleanup efforts. Go ahead. Our most popular program is unarmed security patrols during the summer. We have an enormous number of visitors from Europe who want to see the West, and they want to see the prominent, famous Native American heritage sites. And many of them use Gallup as a base to reside or stay during their vacation in the West. They're not familiar with the West or American culture, so that to smooth their interaction downtown and make sure there's minimum amount of disruption or disturbance, we hire this security company. There's an average of over 1,100 interventions during the summer. Now, some of those may be serious crimes, very few, but it does happen. And the rest are people who got lost or had a heart attack or were inebriated or something. And the guards contact the city police and other emergency service. This is another one of those informational ads showing a number of different things that we were doing that month. Another one. Last year, I sent a letter to, we've had after a long decision-making process, we thought the bid had matured to a point where we could move into doing more substantial infrastructure type of work. We don't have the kind of budget that you would need to buy land and build on it, but we can encourage people who own developable land to contact developers and do something with that land instead of just leaving a vacant lot as sort of an eyesore, but it's certainly non-productive. So research has been done over the past 5 to 10 years in Gallup, always shows that we need a boutique hotel in downtown Gallup. We don't have any hotel in the downtown district. There's an urgent need for additional housing units of all kinds. We really need market rate housing, and we also need low to middle income housing. And we had a grocery store in the heart of downtown which was located in sort of a strip mall plaza. And that whole plaza suffered structural issues, and it's closed. It has to be torn down and replaced. So we are trying to show concepts for what could be done in that space. This is an example of, there's a parking lot that is underutilized, and it's on the east side of town, just adjacent to that Cole Avenue improvement project that I was describing, that we, where we got the grant from the federal government. We're not going to build this, but we hope that a developer could build a hotel like this on that spot. The spot is available. Go ahead. This is one view of, there's probably 10 slides, 10 views of this building, but this would be a 3-story building with the grocery market and cafe and shops on the first floor. Office condominiums on the second floor. There are many attorneys working in Gallup because the federal courthouse is there, Bureau of Indian Affairs, FBI. There are a lot of federal agencies, and they need office space. We don't have very much in the way of office space. And then the third floor would be residential. Good. And this is a view of a concept for a housing apartment complex. To the left, as you're looking at this, is to the left and slightly behind, there's a brand new elementary school and a new playground. And farther left from that is a residential neighborhood. To the right is a shopping plaza, which had a movie theater. And across the street from that is the local post office. So it's a good place to put something, and we definitely need the housing. The work of the BID has been successful because it happens over a long period of time. Unless you're really paying attention to it, it's possible to miss it. You may say, well, gee, I don't know. It looks better, but I don't know what happened. Well, what happened is 26 businesses opened up in the downtown when 7 closed. So it's now a district that people want to be in. And 10 years ago, nobody wanted to go downtown. So it took a long time. It takes a lot of patience, but it is working. We have some programs. We have a sign grant program where we will match, in order to help people be successful, we want them to have a handsome sign, attractive sign that people will draw customers to the store. So we will pay 75% of the cost of the sign up to $5,000 cap. We had one business put up a $25,000 sign. So it's a way of incentivizing them and getting their interest and encouraging them to take part in that program and beautify their building and attract customers. The facade improvement program, you get the property owner gets back the amount they put in as the fee. They can get back that amount to replace glass or doors or cement work or whatever in the front of the building. So these programs help to attract businesses to the district and help them prosper. These are books that have been, each of these books is very important in its own way. Making BIDS Work is the handbook on how to do this work. I've got all these on Amazon. You're not going to find them in a bookstore. They're specialized books, but they're well written. They're written for people who are on the street doing the work. So they're readable, and there's a lot of common sense to it. City Makers was written by a group of people who have done a lot of work in New York City. Now, you may think New York City has nothing in common with New Mexico, but that's not true. That book is full of hundreds of actionable ideas, whether those ideas were executed through a formal program or ad hoc. That's an excellent book. Richard Sennett has been writing and teaching about this kind of work for 30 years. Living and Dwelling is a very good book. That's one of his newer books. There are also videos of his lectures on YouTube. And he's not programmatic. He's not telling you this is how you do things. but it's a reflection on what it means to do this work. And why would you do it? What's the effect of it? And what has been done that should not have been done over the past 30 years. Very well worth reading. Flawless Consulting by Peter Block and Community by Peter Block are books on how to interact with other human beings. And that seems so simple as to be comical. That book was recommended to me by the head of marketing for IBM about 25 years ago. And I read it every year. It's a very excellent book on how to interact with people in meetings and how to negotiate so that everybody respects the other party and everybody wins. It's not how to get to yes. It's not manipulative. It's not an approach to being manipulative. It's the opposite of that. Great writer. Okay. Now, there's a lot of literature on BIDS. There's about 1,500 BIDS in the United States now, maybe probably more. The movement was originated in Ontario, where they're called BIAs, Business Improvement Associations, and they've had great success. So, for the reasons that I've described here, if the BID didn't exist, it just wouldn't be happening. Now, let's go to the budget.
And pointing out, I think Gallup is the only BID in New Mexico.
Yes, it's I mentioned that some cities have dozens of BIDs, but in New Mexico, Gallup has the only BID. But there are communities within New Mexico who have expressed to me interest in doing it and asked me if I could just show them how to do it. It's not that simple. So whoever is going to think this through in the beginning, during that important planning stage, has to be someone from that community who is intimately familiar with the opportunities for growth and also improvement in the social health of the community, and also knows the players. They know the bank president, they know the property owners. That person has to canvass the area and figure out for themselves whether this is doable. Somebody from the outside can come in and give advice, but cannot perform that task. I don't think so, not successfully.
And this document that Francis is going to reference, you can access it under the handouts, and this is the Gallup BID budget.
Johanna had asked me to show this because if you have a budget of 1.4 million, the work that you can do and the way you think about what you're doing is a lot different than if you have a budget of 100,000. If you have a budget of less than 100,000, I don't know how much you can do, but that remains to be seen by the folks in your own cities. We have a city of 21,000 people, and I explained the number of properties that are assessed. We budget $108,000 as the amount that we anticipate will come in from the assessments. Then we budget the city match. We receive lodger's tax reimbursement. We have one sponsor for the Rye Fly Cruise.
And I wanted to interrupt really quickly, but I see that you have a line item for grants, and I know that when you form a BID, it is creating an interesting vehicle that, whether it's a nonprofit or some type of other organization or a government, that makes it easier to access grants versus a business.
Yes.
Because we get a lot of inquiries from businesses that want free money grants, which the reality is a lot of grants aren't available to businesses. However, they could go to a vehicle like a nonprofit or an organization that could be spread out to the businesses. So really great tool to get business grants.
That's why we incorporated it as a 501c3. They had received some grants in the early years, but in this year we didn't. Currently, I'm applying for federal grants to help close the funding gap on that Cole Avenue Commons reconstruction of Cole Avenue. All right, wages and benefits are not important. The city fees, the city takes a 10% of the grand total of the amount collected. They take that as a fee for administering our account, mailing out the invoices, straightening out issues, taking people to court who have liens on them. If somebody doesn't pay, I should have mentioned that earlier. If someone does not pay and they're required to pay the assessment fee, if they don't cooperate and express a strong desire to not cooperate at all with the program, we'll put a lien on their building. And then typically if they sell the building, we collect the lien. But if they don't sell their building, we will have to go to court to collect the lien. That usually results in accomplishing some sort of repayment program with them. But the city has to get involved with that because we can't file a lien in the court. Accounting fees, so those are all fees. Marketing, billboards. Now the billboard is just a local, small billboard downtown. The print is my main advertising vehicle. I showed a number of back page ads, and we run those ads also in the papers in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces. Office supplies. Okay, these are the normal things that you would expect.
Okay. And it just hopefully gives.
Okay, events by others.
Sure.
Now, we provide $19,000 a year. Currently, we're spending more than that to fund the art crawl event that I described earlier. We funded Farmers Market for a number of years. Currently, they don't need the money, so they don't ask for it. Then we provide some funds to other organizations who have charitable events to help them do their advertising and promotion. And that's the Lions Club, the Relay for Life is Cancer. We promote the downtown Christmas. And then we have the ceremonial. That's 6330, line item 6330. That's the Gallup Intertribal Ceremonial, which involves, that's a gigantic event that has 23 committees organizing an event that takes 2.5 weeks. We just provide them with a small amount to help with the advertising and marketing.
Okay.
And then we have our own programs, the cleaning campaign. We provide $5,000, and that's in conjunction with the City Parks and Recreation Department to clean the sidewalks in the downtown.
We're getting close to time.
Yeah, MSACD that's Main Street Arts and Cultural District. The Our Town grant match was the previous year. That was $25,000. This year we didn't have to do that. We've pledged $35,000 toward the alley project that I showed you. And the signature event, we spend $27,000 on that. But we get back the lodger's tax portion. We spent $23,000 on security. This year we'll probably spend $26,000. The sign grant program. So with an operating budget of about $180,000, we're able to accomplish these things. Now, let me see something. Can you go up to the total expense here is $325,000. But as you saw, we're only taking in around $200,000. But we had money left over from programs for which we had budgeted funds but didn't have to spend them. So we carried over those funds and used them this year primarily for the transformative project, which is the building projects that I had showed you. Okay. That was $32,000 for architect's fees, consulting fees, legal fees, and also a full day of consulting from a seminar, actually, from an expert on tax credits and financing tools.
Okay. I'm going to take questions.
Sure.
And as mentioned, that document is available to everyone. Let's see. If you have questions, please type them into the box on the right of your screen, and we got some coming in, and we see Noreen, you have quite a long question. Let's see. Intention of gathering. So Noreen wrote in that she has a property in an area of New Mexico, and wants to purchase a building and start a business. And looks like you're asking for assistance about business resources. Can you talk about how the BID collaborates and distinguishes itself from Main Street? So that is kind of an interesting question.
Sure.
I think she's getting at how do you distinguish the different business resources that are in the area?
Sure. The BID is a property owner's special assessment organization, and the Main Street is formed with the cooperation of the business owners, not the property owners, although property owners can and do get involved. The BID has a general fund, which I've been describing, and we have a staff of me by myself. We have money, but we don't have workers. The Main Street program is a way of developing volunteer effort within the community, and the Main Street directors go through excellent training programs to learn the Main Street principles according to their 4 points of operating. Once the Main Street organization has a certified director, and that director has taken all that training, and the Main Street organization itself is accredited, that organization is able to pursue funding at the state and federal level. There are channels of funding that are available to Main Streets that are not available to other types of organizations. The Main Street program was begun in the 1980s by the National Park Service as a historic preservation effort, because so many downtowns were being torn down and ruining the historic fabric of the community. So they started the program, and funding for projects can come from the Park Service. It can also come from elsewhere. But a BID cannot access any of those programs and does not offer the 4-point program that Main Street offers. So it's a different approach with different funding mechanisms, different advantages, but the two together have a true synergy. With the BID, you have the property owners must buy into it, and with the Main Street, you have the business owners want to see things improve in their community. So working together has proven in our case to be helpful, and the BID has been able to provide funding to the Main Street. I would also must point out that the members of the BID board, seasoned business people as they are, have learned quite a lot from the Main Street program that was helpful, not only in actionable practical ways, but also philosophically in how they view their communities.
And right now, just to add, they have become kind of the de facto organization within the state, seemingly, to kind of offer technical assistance and information about BIDS and other special assessment. Hopefully will change within the department a little bit moving forward. But
the program, the Main Streets, every state runs its Main Street program differently. In New Mexico, it's housed in the Economic Development Department. In some states, it's housed in the Parks Department. They're all different. Rich Williams, who ran the Main Street program for many years, created a very good program here. And the approach involves employing consultants who are experts at what they do. There's a design expert, there's a promotion expert, economic development experts. So if you think about another way of getting information that you might seek to help you with your property and your business, you have the state small business development offices, and you have the zone reps from the Economic Development Department that provide technical assistance. But those are folks who know the state programs like the back of their hand and are able to help you understand what you're eligible to use. But they are not experts in teaching you how to have a better business or to have a better community. The Main Street program does that. Paying consultants instead of paying state staff to give you literature that describes programs was controversial when it began, but it has proven to be a very successful way of going about it. The National Main Street Organization, which is now called Main Street America, listed New Mexico Main Street in the top 5 in terms of management and success, in the top 5 in the whole United States. So the answer to your question is, you're looking for allies, you're looking for ideas, you're looking for support. Talk to everybody.
Great. And that was kind of getting at Kara's question a bit too. And I see that there are a few questions that are a bit the same. And Talal is already, he's looking at the Gallup BID website. And but Talal and Kara and Noreen, I think, had the same question about the assessment fee. How do you generate that fee? How is that determined?
How do they decide how much it would be?
Yes. And what I think, what's the average fee?
That there's no one answer to that question. It's not a national formula. Each community has to determine you want to come up with a grand total amount to create a general fund that's large enough to produce meaningful work. You don't want the fee to be so onerous that nobody can afford it. The formula, the mechanism is up to the steering committee to determine. And that's why I indicated earlier, you really want to have a CPA and an attorney working with your steering committee, because they can run those spreadsheets, and not the attorney, the CPA can run the spreadsheets for you and come up with a formula that works. In our case, they began the work to create this bid in 2007, and it was authorized in 2009. The ordinance was passed in 2009. But during that couple of years, they decided to base it on the property values as are registered with the county assessor's office. And so they took the property values in 2006 and then took a very small percentage of that, and everybody pays the same percentage. So if you have a really large footprint, like I mentioned, the GMC dealer pays $10,000 a year, and somebody who has a small cafe may only pay $400 or $500 a year.
Okay. And
but what exactly that's going to be must be determined by the local people on the ground who understand the situation.
Okay. And then we have one final question. Can a resident decide not to pay the fee?
No, according to the states, residents don't pay.
And
this is strictly commercial property.
that was from Astrid.
It's only commercial property. Residents do not pay. But once the ordinance has been passed, all of the property owners in the district are required to pay. That's the state statute. That's what it says.
Okay. All right. Well, that sums up the questions. We have one more that I think is an interesting one. Charlene is asking, are there tax incentives for property owners participating in a bid?
The tax incentives are not. Yeah, the answer is yes, there are, but maybe not in the way you're thinking about the question. The tax incentives are not because you have a bid, but the bid can make it easier for you to understand and access the tax credits. We had the person who oversees historic tax credits in New Mexico is Harvey Kaplan, and he works in the Historic Preservation Office, which is run by Jeff Pappas. We've had a number of meetings with them in their offices, and Harvey Kaplan has come to Gallup and conducted a small seminar on the advantages of the tax credits, and has met with individual property owners to explain to them what they'd be eligible for. He's the person who has to facilitate that, the paperwork for that. And he's only there to help you. He also can work with you through Main Street. They can make the introduction, or a BID can make the introduction. But that's a standalone program. You're not entitled to it because your city has a BID. You're entitled to it because you own a property. There are many tax credit programs. It's a confusing landscape. But you should take advantage of them. If you have a high tax bill and you're looking for tax relief, it's better to put the money into your property than to give it to Uncle Sam in many cases.
Great. And into law, we see the question that you have: what types of federal grants and through which federal agencies are BIDS eligible to apply for. So we'll follow up with you on that, because that's kind of what our department does, is can help connect nonprofits and organizations. But if you want to talk really briefly.
Yeah, briefly, it's another area where collaboration is important.
Right.
If you're going to approach the federal government, you almost always have to involve the city government, the county government, the state government, or the Council of Governments. The Council of Governments program nationwide was established to facilitate rural areas seeking funds from the federal government. They're the experts on that. So what we do is we identify a need, we contact our federal legislators, see if they think what we're wanting to do has merit. If it does, then we have to apply to the normal agencies that you would imagine, and we work with the Council of Governments and with the city. But if we didn't do that, nobody else would bother to do it because they're all so busy. We're the ones who have identified a particular project, XYZ, as a priority for us, and we have to then convince the people at the COG, people at the city, and the people at the departments who provide the grant money that it's worth going forward, and that it will create jobs, which is an imperative now, and also will have a major impact on the socioeconomic conditions of the city as a whole.
And it's interesting too, within Fund It, when we hear communities pitching for a financial need, trying to find out where they can access funding, often the question gets asked of what is the organization, what is the vehicle, and as mentioned, that BID helps to have somewhat of an organization around a collaborative effort that funding entities are going to be more apt to fund that vehicle versus.
They know that the money will be well used.
Right, and there's already organizations.
They're not just throwing their money into a hole. The money will be well managed and well used, and the project will be completed.
Right. Easy to leverage different funding sources, so easier, I should say. But we're gonna go on.
The fact that I'm sitting here is a good example of collaboration. Johanna had been in Gallup for a presentation on a day when I was in Santa Fe meeting with legislators. Later, she sent me an email. I had been engaged in some correspondence as email threads where there were dozens of people on the thread. That's how I knew Johanna's name, but we had never met. And she reached out to me and asked me if I would provide this webinar today. So that's a collaboration right there. Years ago, the Economic Development Department was not so warm and fuzzy and welcoming and wanting everybody to help everybody else. So this is a very good time in the history of the state and perhaps in the history and the development of your business to try to take advantages of all these programs. And Johanna's working with everybody and getting everyone to work together.
On that note, I wanted to share some events that we do have coming up. To Francis' point, of ways that our department and our team get out in the state and offer awareness, education opportunities, collaborative opportunities to learn more about financing, work together, meet people. But our Fund It meeting, that's the group that I mentioned earlier, that you can pitch your project and get direct feedback from experts. All the Council of Government directors are there, which, as Francis mentioned, those are your gateway to a lot of federal funding. Our regional reps are there, as well as the representatives from those actual funding entities, so they can give you direct feedback on your projects of where to get funding. That meeting is coming up June 25th. Cutoff for applications is June 17th. And you can register online. Our next webinar series, that will be June 27th, and we'll be talking to John Brooks, who is the New Mexico Finance Authority Commercial Lending Director, and he'll be talking about NMFA's wide variety of programs that they have for lending in New Mexico. And our commercial funded event, that's that first branch out into the commercial realm, looking at connecting lenders for businesses and people that are interested in business financing. That will be in Taos on July 17th, so you can register for that, and we'll be going all over the state. But if you are in the northern central region of the state, please join us. Look for more information on that. Opportunity zones, that's a hot topic these days. And we are unrolling our initiative and all the work that we've been doing on collaborating with all our different opportunities zones around the state. But we'll have an in-person forum that the public is welcome to attend, and that'll be August 29th in Albuquerque. So stay tuned for that. We'll have a number of speakers there, and it'll be a great way to exchange ideas and ask questions. And want to just remind everyone that our program, the Credit Enhancement Program, that is a really good tool for businesses, for small businesses that are trying to get lending or get loans. We can purchase a CD in a bank to fulfill a collateral shortfall. So a lot of the businesses in rural areas struggle with having that 100% collateral in order to get a small business loan. So if there's a gap and there's a need there, we can participate, so the bank will have less risk and they'll do the deal. So please reach out to us on any of these events. Sign up. We hope to see you. Sure.
I want to make an extra comment about what we were talking about earlier, and I thought about it while Johanna was just going through that list. The folks at the Council of Governments are overwhelmed with work, but it's worth your time to try to figure out how to meet your district representative and let that person know that you're serious about doing some serious work. Those people have good personal relationships with the people that you need to influence at the federal departments where you're going to seek the money. They don't know you, probably. They don't know your name. They never met you, but they do know the people from the COGS. And so it's wise to take advantage of those relationships. The programs that Johanna was just mentioning, the meetings that are upcoming, everyone wants to, a lot of people want to secure a grant. They don't want to take a loan. But in many cases, and this is an important thing to consider, in many cases, you're better off taking a loan, a gap financing loan, than trying to get a grant. You may be ineligible for the grant on technical reasons that have nothing to do with the stability of your business, but the reporting requirements on a large grant are not trivial. The city of Gallup obtained a large grant having to do with behavioral health, and they had to hire 2 people just to handle the reporting. And that doesn't even take into account executing the program. So in many cases, taking a loan, if you can get a good interest rate, is at least as good as getting a grant. So don't turn away from those.
That's a really good point.
And this funded program is a good way for you to find out what kind of loans you might qualify and what the different interest rates are, and get to know some people and try to work out a deal that works for you.
Great point. And I wish I had put the Council of Governments contacts on this page. So maybe I'll send that out when we send the email to all the participants. But these are just highlighting the key players that Francis mentioned that might be in your community, to reach out to them if you have questions about financing tools or starting a business improvement district. I put the links here. Our New Mexico Economic Development regional reps, they are located all over the state in the different regions, and their contact is out there. Reach out to them. They're the front lines of our department. Know all the players in your region intimately and extensively work with all the local governments. So very knowledgeable about where to go and resources. And then New Mexico Main Street, we've talked a lot about them, really integral to the Business Improvement District work that has been done in the MRA legislation that was passed. Hopefully you're lucky to have a Main Street in your area, but if not, reach out to them, ask any questions. They are in our department. So we'll get you the contacts to all these different players. And then here's the contact for our department and our team, the finance development team. And it's a really small team: Juan Torres, Joel Salas, and myself, Joanna Nelson. Reach out to us. We're here. We're your advocate. We're your resources and your connector. So any question, no question is trivial. We're finance nerds in a way. I love talking about business improvement districts and all the interesting creative tools that you can use for spurring economic development. So reach out to us, and we hope to talk to you soon. But that concludes our webinar. So I want to thank Francis immensely for coming and coming here to Santa Fe and talking about BIDS, because we're really lucky to have you and be talking to you. So thanks for your time.
Sure, my pleasure, and good luck to everyone with your business efforts.
Great. Thank you, everyone.